The selection tools in Photoshop for a second, because this is going to be the tools that you're going to be using the most to actually create your composites. The first step in selections is that they are grouped in the top of the toolbar, and they're grouped in part in sections where there's rectangle, elliptical. Below you have the lasso, the polygonal lasso, or the magnetic lasso. And then you have the quick selection tool, which is the best selection tool that there is out there right now. You also might have an object selection tool, which is something that we'll get into. It's in a newer version of Photoshop, which should be on this computer, but for some reason it didn't include it with the update. So let's talk about the rectangle first. If we select the rectangle, you can see that the options bar at the top changes. If we click into our document window, we are simply clicking and dragging and drawing a rectangle. If we hold down the space bar, it'll draw a square. If we let go, then that rectangle is represented by the selection. If we zoom in on that, you can see that in Photoshop it's what's known as marching ants, with the selection being these little black and white dots that are moving around on the edges. They're kind of like ants. So this represents what this image is being focused in on and actually selected. We can do a lot from this point, but let me just show you a quick thing that we can do. I could hit Command C on my keyboard, and that'll copy this actual selection to my clipboard, and I hit Command V, and then you can see that it actually pasted a layer onto my background. And if I grab the move tool, you can see that I've moved that layer and it is independent of where I selected it now. So now this is the beginning of how we are able to collage such an intricate photograph and start with the selection tool and then move on, building our image as we go. With this rectangular selection tool, the thing that I want you to pay attention to the most is the edge of the selection. Here you can see that there's a very sharp edge to the selection, and as I move it around you can see that this edge is really sharp and it's really delineated within the composition. If I go back to the rectangular marquee tool, and I go to the feather amount, and you can see when I hover over the feather it gives me a pointer with a double-sided arrow. If I just click and drag to the right, it'll quickly add a feather amount, and you can see it's the integers in pixels. So if I have a 20 or so pixel feather amount and I go to use this tool, I'm going to click on my background again, because remember, we're independent of layer 1. Layer 1 is over here, and I'll make a selection the same size as layer 1. I'll hit Command C and then Command V. And if we go to our move tool and move this layer out from where we selected, you can see what happens with our 20 pixel feather amount. There's actually a blend that starts happening where the edge of the selection is tapered and it goes at full intensity a little bit further into the selection. So it starts with that 20 pixels, and that's our buffer zone. So you can imagine this is how a lot of blending happens inside of Photoshop with selections, because you can do something that is uh, very blended and has a soft edge compared to, let me just move our layer 1 around here just for the demonstration, a very sharp edge. So very soft edge with the feather amount, very sharp edge with no feather amount. So there's the difference.